hi. Since you're so many, maybe I can get some of you to go somewhere else by telling you what this talk will be about in like a minute. So if you have done a lot of work with Nginx before, chances are I might bore you. So there's a very cool REST talk across the room. If you leave now, like everything will be fine, and you will have maybe a more interesting 45 minutes. But as this is an introductory talk, just to do some expectation management, so you won't be disappointed afterwards. OK, since nobody seems to want to be leaving, thank you, I guess. I guess we can start then. So, hi, I'm Volker. This is sort of what I do. This PHP thing that runs this internet, you might have heard of it. Been doing that for like 10, maybe 12 years now. Mostly interested in things like continuous integration, the clean code movement. Recently did some more stuff you call nowadays DevOps. When I was young, it was called talking to sysadmins. And I've been into test-driven development for quite some time. I do some contributions to PHP unit. And my main focus in the last maybe half a year was shipping, getting features out of the door, actually building things that people use and doing that in a continuous fashion. And so if you don't want to talk to me afterwards or something, just read those books. They're more interesting than me anyways. And they say what I say in a way better and more coherent manner. And if you read those 4 books, you're pretty much set to go to do whatever you want in tech, at least in web tech. It's at least my opinion on those. So if you never heard of them, at least give them a look and see if something might be in there for you. Since people still are coming in, I'm going to bore you with other things. This is where I'm working for, or whom I'm working for. ResearchGate is a scientific network, so we're trying to give science back to the people who actually make it, the researchers. It's been a very, very cool time for us. We yesterday announced that our 3rd funding round. We got funding from Bill Gates and a couple other investors, which is really cool for us. If you want to hear more about the company, come talk to me afterwards. I'm not going to bore you longer with that. So if you want to get in touch, all of those options are fine. You can talk to me. I know it's crazy to do that, but I will be here for a little bit after the talk, so just come up if there's something you want to know. So to the main. I'm sorry. Let's just try it. Let's just try to do that again. Hey, Nginx, it's awesome. You should all use it. Maybe. But we already have Apache. And so why do we need another web server if we already have Apache? And this is sort of a question I had for a good chunk of years. I mean, Apache has always been a friend to me. We grew up together. The first time I did something with Apache was maybe when I was 14 or 15. And back then there was a website called apachefriends.org, and they gave me a zip file, and that was cool because I knew how to do zip files back then. And you could unpack it, and then it was a little nice GUI, and you didn't have to bother with the ugly command line. And it just let you start a web server, and PHP worked with it because people really, really, really put a lot of effort in mod PHP and making it work for people who just wanted to do things on the web and not learn technology. I didn't start out trying to understand how a web server works. I started out because I could do things on a screen really easily, and then I could show it to people, and they could interact with it, and it was really awesome. And I've grown up a little bit since that, not spiritually, but I'm old now. But Apache has been a really good friend, but making it do things always seemed like it shouldn't be that hard. And so when I had to do some more real operation stuff and not just making it do things, but making it do things repeatedly and without crashing and without waking me up in the night, and that required reading a lot of documentation. And I'm a web developer. I don't read documentation unless someone forces me to. And if the documentation doesn't tell me the answer, but just that I should know things, then maybe there's an easier way. So Lite came along, and then Nginx came along, and they both have a couple nice different approaches. So, but why I'm not talking about Lighty, and this is not a talk where I want to say like, use this web server because it's better, or use this web server because it's better. I just want to talk to you about why I use Nginx, why I like it, and what I think are its strong points, and you can make up the rest for yourself. The thing with Lighty was, it was actually quite fun to use. It was easy to set up, and it just sometimes stopped responding to requests without actually like failing or shutting down. And the community wasn't that active at the point in time where I tried to approach them. I actually don't know that well about the current status of the project, but that's like just sort of the glimpse. Been there, tried it, didn't work for me, went somewhere else, got happy there. So if you have a different story, that's like, I'm not saying that this wasn't because I was stupid. That's like most of the problems that I have are because of that. But so that this is basically the agenda in like bullet points, because I can't do pretty slides. So this is all we have to work with. But I'm rather convinced that it will work out, so stay with me. We're going to go through all those points. I'm going to say a little bit to something. And what I want to show you mostly with Nginx is how easy it is to approach it, and how little you have to do to actually make it do something you want, and how well the developers of Nginx understood what you want from the thing. So you go to your Linux or Mac or command line of choice, and you probably type apt-get install Nginx or something, and then this is the main files that we're going to be working with. So Nginx has two main configuration files. I mean, it has a lot more, but this is all we have to care about, because 2 files ought to be enough. It's a file and a folder. But usual Linux stuff. So we have our basic Nginx configuration, and most systems provide like a confd folder for Nginx, which is like nothing special. And I'm going to show you how you can put this somewhere else, or how you can make your own, because the way it works is very easy to work with, and it's very upfront about what it does. So whatever your distribution ships as Nginx configs, you can also throw them away and write them by hand, which is like, for Apache configurations, it came with those massive chunks of XML files, which actually, like, I'm old and I like XML files because I have auto-completion there, and like it actually tells me what I have to do. But it was so much, and it was in so many places, and it got so confusing, and Nginx was like, just put it here, and it doesn't matter what you write in each file, we'll figure it out in the end. And so this is like the very, very basics that you're probably going to get from your distribution of choice. And it looks rather straightforward, and it actually is. Like, this doesn't lie to you. I mean, user, OK, I run as Nginx. I have 6 worker processes. Doesn't really matter now. I'll tell you later what this actually means. And then it says, like, so on which CPUs should I run the workers? So let's make a format where people can specify on which CPU which worker thread should run. I guess you can figure out how the format works just by looking at the example and on which CPU which thing runs. And like, not that you need this usually, but if you need it, it's a really, really cool format. It's so like, OK, so I want this to run on that 2 CPUs, so I put 2 ones there. OK. And this is very friendly and very approachable, I guess. So then you can say the error log, which error log you want to use, which PID file you want to use, and then how many connections you want to handle. So this is the most complicated and most indented slide in the presentation, because this is the complete flow through the configuration of Nginx. So I thought I started with that, because if we can understand this complicated file, then the rest will be gonna be very easy. So Nginx splits its configuration in 3 areas of interest, if you want to say. There is global configuration, which would like be above or whatever, and then there is HTTP configuration, which means like everything that is related with Nginx, delivering and doing HTTP, HTTPS, web stuff in general. And then in those HTTP blocks, there you can have multiple server blocks. Think of server as like a domain you want to serve, or yeah, it's basically the easiest way, or like multiple domains. So like one to n domains. for which you will have a specific configuration, and location is a path within this domain. So it's like web stuff, server stuff, path stuff. So the third block is then probably where you like put all your static assets and your PHP and whatever. So the very basic HTTP stuff is you say, OK, so let's include all the MIME types. Nginx comes with this MIME type file where it defines like most of the things you'll ever need. In recent versions, I would say it defines anything you will ever need, and it will like just know which files it should deliver with which headers, and everything like that will be taken care for you. So then the default type, if it shouldn't know something, we'll pretend it's binary. OK. Where do I want to put the access log? This has a couple configuration options depending if you want to do this on syslog, or if you want to like put this in a special place to the log rotation, or what you actually want to include there. The log format is very Apache-ish, and you can customize it easily if you want. And then this is like send file says, if there's a file and I don't like have a processor for it, should I send it to the user, or should I say he doesn't have access? And then you say send the file yes, which is like mostly you come to Nginx and say I have this concrete problem, and the solution is you say this concrete problem space on semicolon, and then it solves this problem for you. Keep a live timeout, and then this is how Nginx does multiple configurations. You just say include all the files that match this glob path, and let's go from there. So if you want to do, if you have like Nginx configurations in your application, or however your servers are structured, you probably can figure out an easy way to include those. And this is very cool because you don't have to go to, I know you can also do this with Apache, but like it's one line, and I like things that are one line. That's sort of what I can keep in my head. It's very easy to just put a small Nginx file with your application, and then no matter where you install it, all you have to actually touch the system for is to say, OK, now include the Nginx of like the Nginx configuration file of my application, and that will take care of the rest. So that was like the HTTP block, and that's all I'm going to say about like the big HTTP block. So let's see for servers. So servers, we give it a name, and we say like everything.wahlbash.com or everything.wahlbash.de, listen to port 80, and then do stuff with that. Or like maybe you don't want to spell out the domain name, maybe you have so many domains, maybe you actually don't care, although you say like everything else, like everything where you couldn't find a match before, server name, everything, do this, which is also like a very nice way, because it will, sometimes it gets a little hassle with other web servers to say like, OK, now I need to define a virtual host for this and a virtual host for this, and if I listen to port 80 in this virtual host, then I can't do it here or whatever. And all of the things you can get wrong, it doesn't just let you do. Like if you just say like 7 things listen to port 80, it will figure out what to put where, and it will also figure it out with HTTPS, which can be a problem using like host names and stuff, but it will take care of it, and it will figure it out for you. So, and then for the most basic thing, if you want to serve static content, like you have all your static content in this folder, then you put this in the server block, and then you're done. This is like, we turned send file on before, so it sends files. And now we just tell it, for this server block, where this location block is included in, for everything, like a path starting with a slash, this is the root of this. This is the root in like the folder for this server, and like you go figure it out, and it will figure it out. And then you have like static content delivery. I know this isn't as cool anymore as it was like 12 years ago when I started, and I was really happy that files showed up, but it's very easy to write. And if you want to be like really fancy with your static content, you can say like, OK, so everything that ends now everything that is in the folder JS or image or CSS, like this like is basically a regular expression. You have your starting slash, and then one of those 3 folders. Just go there and deliver that, and the rest you don't care about. So it lets you write rather intuitive. It looks a little weird because you have to escape that slash, but once you have written one or two of those, it gets very, very easy to make up regular expressions of how your application is structured. And they don't have to be that complicated. And it very easily adapts to what you already have, and you don't have to put a lot of hassle in. Like usually you don't even need rewrite rules, because you can just define those location blocks in a smarter way, and you don't have to say, like, if it goes there, redirect to this URL, and this URL maybe then redirects there. Like, you just put a bunch more location blocks in and let it figure things out. So another example of the how the regular expression thing could work is saying, like, everything that has a dot in it, like your .htaccess, because you have one lying around for Apache installations, or your .git folder, because this is how you deploy, or anything like that. Turn the access log off, because we don't want to log those requests. Turn the not found log off, because we don't care if people try to request those files and we don't serve them. And just say, no, you can't have that. And deny all. I think in the standard configuration will even produce a 404, so you don't even like leak information that it's there. It's just like, I don't care, go away. And it's very, like, for me, this format feels very straightforward and very easy to approach in the sense that you can just say, okay, I want to turn off the access log. How do I do that? Access log off. This is a way of communication with the thing that I can understand and follow. On that respect, this is how you do SSL. And so HTTP and HTTPS. You say, like, for everything that arrives at this machine, listen to 80 and listen to 443 using SSL. In older Nginx versions, you said SSL on, but then you also had to specify a port, so they put it in one line. Well, no, actually, like, SSL is a little bit more complicated, and this is the whole story. Like, this is everything you have to do for SSL, and like those lines, like, I read them on the internet, so I know they're safe. So you can just blindly copy them, right? This is how this works. I'll walk you through a little bit. So this is your certificates, which is your very basic, like. You can also use one PAM file, and it will figure it out. And then you say, this is your SSL session timeout. This is where it should store the information. And then you say SSL protocols, and those are the ones that I support. You say prefer server ciphers, because there was a security vulnerability. So we just don't let the client decide which cipher it wants to use. Then those are the ciphers. If you ever configured what ciphers something should use, you know the format. If not, yes, it really looks like that. Yes, it's ugly, I know. You once have to, like, read how the thing is structured, what ciphers are actually included in there, and how all the don't use MD5 and don't use that, and what those actually all mean. It's rather easy to figure out, because there are websites to help you. And then you say, like, use elliptic curve ciphers, because they're a little bit faster and don't consume so much CPU power. There's a very nice SSL tester website out there, which name I always forget when I want to promote it. But it's the first thing that shows up in Google when you say, like, SSL check, and that will give you a very nice rating and tell you about security problems in your configuration and which ciphers you support, and that sort of decrypts what you already configured. And I would very much urge you, if you do anything HTTPS, to always, like, use one or two of those tools to check not what you think you configured, but what actually happened, and if there is any current problem with your SSL configuration. Because in the last couple, like in the last 1 or 2 years, there has been a lot of buzz and problems in SSL that have been discovered by people. Most of them, they're very easy fixes for you, just have to employ them. So rewrites. This is sort of the point where me and Apache always had long nights together. It usually ended up with me crying and or not understanding what I did anymore, and the next day, and just, like, never touching it again because it worked once. So I've done Apache 8-9 years. I used it on a good chunk of projects, but I can't for the hell of me remember what square brackets R and Q and RSQ and exclamation mark and all that stuff means. And like again, this is totally my problem, but this doesn't make me remember things that I don't know how to use, so I'm happy. And this is the very, very basic rewrite rule that you might want to use. Like, it's maybe a bit contrived example, because you would do HTTP to HTTPS writing maybe in another way, but I think it very nicely shows that you can just say like, server, everything that starts with HTTP, rewrite it to this URL, and those host and request environment variables is just something Nginx automatically populates for you and that are there for you. And initially, like when I first saw someone talk about Nginx and show me those variables, my reaction was, how do I get to know like which variables I should put where, and like how do I even know that host exists? And the nice thing about this is you don't have to. Because if you have a problem and you go to their documentation, then they just tell you how to solve it. And I never, like in the 3 or 4 years that I did stuff with Nginx by now, ran into problems where the documentation didn't tell me everything I needed to know to solve my problem. This is a very, very big achievement on their part, because you don't actually have to read the documentation. You just enter your problem in Google, you click the first link, and then they show you first the code, and after that, if you're really interested and if you're like, it's half an hour until I get to go home, I might as well understand what I'm doing. And then you just don't just take it and see that it works, but you actually can read up on it. And it's very concise and detailed, and it doesn't bore you to death. So let's talk about something else, error pages. So for every 500 X error that pops up, just go to 500 HTML. So this is how you say which error page it should use. You can also do the same thing for other errors like 404 or whatever. And then we define a location saying /500.html. So this just does like an internal redirect. And here we say this 500.html is only reachable through an internal rerouting, which means that if someone goes to your site and enters /500.html, he can't access this, and it will say this doesn't exist because maybe you don't want to show your 500 page to the world. But currently, nowadays with GitHub and other sites like that, where you basically put at least 20% of your design effort into your error page, because that's like your customer experience and that's what they're going to see most of the time, you actually want to expose this. And like you want to be, hey, people can link to our 500 page because we're like a startup, and 404 and 500 is like something that we do branding with. So you say like location /500, and then you say, OK, return 500, which means like return a 500 error code. If this location gets accessed, 500. You can also say like 404. You can say redirects are like, you could return a 302 with the correct parameters, but you also could just say redirect, which is a little bit more straightforward. But this is also very cool just if you want to test things. Like what actually happens if my backend, whatever backend that might be, returns a 500 or returns a 403 or returns a 502. Then you just make something like that, you access it, and the thing actually tells you what's going to happen if the backend system responds with that code. Because what it does is make an internal 500, throw that, and respond to it. And it's not like, OK, I have to understand how the thing works to see what it will produce when this happens, but you can just go try it. So this is how you do caching. So content from those folders expires in 14 days. And then we'll do like all the caching headers. And I actually don't remember if it also sets an e-tag. I don't think so. But like this will take care of all the caching headers, so it will be understood by all the browsers, and you don't have to worry about the details. And I haven't found a case yet where this didn't work. Because you said it should expire in 14 days, so it will expire in 14 days, and the rest the thing can handle itself. And if you want to like talk to memcache, then you have to actually write like 4 lines of configuration. So the use case for this might be that you never heard of Varnish. No, there's actually legitimate use cases for this too, but like this would be an example of how you do full page caching in Nginx. So you say the memcache key is the URI that was requested. This is the memcache server. This is the default type I'm gonna be responding with, and the error page in case of a 404 is a fallback. This add fallback just defines a fallback URL, which is something you can name a location. Like you can give this a name, and then you can just say, OK, now if this wasn't found internally, like it doesn't throw 404 or does a redirect or something, but it just says like, in case I couldn't resolve this for memcache, just go to whatever I called add fallback and resolve this. And then you can also say, so whatever you get from the backend is already gzipped, because we didn't want to put that much stuff in memcache, or because memcache pages are only 1 megabyte. So let's just gzip that. And then you run into this problem that someone comes with an old Internet Explorer that doesn't support gzip compression, clicks on your site and gets those nice binary thing, and then you say, so either I would have to figure out if it comes in as a cached request or something, and then you can just tell Nginx. So if you know he doesn't understand what you're trying to say to him, just unzip it and deliver it unzipped. And this is one of those moments that made me very, very happy, because like I didn't want to deal with that. Like the moment I noticed, it was like, gzip is around for a while. How come not all browsers are understanding this? And how come caching headers don't work like I expect them to? Why does the internet hate me again? And then I was like, oh, it can answer. OK, cool, done. Never have to worry about that again. And that was very nice. So how do you do basic authentication with Nginx? This is like what you do with your .htaccess files usually. Like you can configure a lot of things in htaccess files, but usually you do like authentication there, and you say auth basic, and this is like in your nice little pop-up where it says username and password. This is the title, and then you say here's a file, like a htpassvd file. Go. This is everything. Like this is basic authentication with Nginx. You have to make this htpassvd file, which is like one Linux command, and then you say this is the text, this is the file. You go deal with it, because this will never change. Like authentication always worked like that, and probably you know better what you're doing than I do anyway. So OK, 2 lines of code. Yay. OK, this is how you do load balancing. So request comes in. And then you say like add upstream. So this is a named location, if you will, or a named thing. And there you say, those are the 4 servers. You figure out how load balancing works. I have work to do. And it will do that very well. And you can configure a lot of things there that you might need at some point. You can say how strong the individual machines are. You can make health checks. What it will do by default is if one machine doesn't respond, it will remember, and it won't redirect traffic to that machine for a little bit. Because like the machine didn't respond, so like let's just not go talk there. If it doesn't know how to figure out if the machine is healthy or not, it will then, I think after 30 seconds in the default configuration, go there again, try again. So you will have a couple 404s, but you don't like it won't, just because one server goes down, it won't like completely blow up. You still will have to deal with it, but it's sort of nice about it. And if one of the machines is a lot stronger, you can just like say space weight is 5, and then this will be 5 times more important than all the other things in the configuration. So and then usually with load balancing, you run into this question where you say, but we have a legacy application that stores stuff on disk. For example, our sessions, because, well, that's the way things are, and we can't change that because we have like 10 million lines of code lying around, or like in my case, it was like 2 million lines of code. We don't want to change everything, and we store PDFs on disk that we deliver from there. So can you please make sure that every user always goes to the same machine? And then you do this, and then it works. And that's really cool. Yeah, sure. OK, like do the upstream by hashing the IP and redirecting people there. Like you can do more complicated things than that, but this gets you a very, very long way. And this like will work with WordPress and with Drupal and with all the things that with at least if you use some modules, like depend that the same person always goes to the same machine. This is good enough, and that's 8 bytes. That's beautiful. So if you want to use Nginx as a proxy, this is how you do that. So you say, you define your server block and you define your location block, and you say, so for everything, go talk to HTTP 8000 and set another header, just because our backend system might also need the real IP that the request was made with. So we're gonna pass that one through, and then you do that. You can read up in the documentation what that does, but it's in the basic sample. If you say Nginx proxy, yay! So this is the proxy configuration I, for example, have set up for Jenkins or something that doesn't like to be run on port 80, or doesn't like to, because it doesn't like administrator rights. So it kindly asks you, so maybe you don't want to run me on port 80, especially if you have other services running on this machine and you only want to redirect /Jenkins, then I would put here /Jenkins/ and do all that, and then it would proxy or to the local machine. You could basically put anything in there, that everything that in your head makes sense, you can put there and will understand it. And if you have very, very strange ideas in your head, then it will say, that doesn't work, but you probably meant to write that, so try that, and then that will work. So it's a two-step process, and that will always get you there. OK, but this is the International PHP Conference, and I have 10 minutes left. So let's talk a little bit about how you do PHP with Nginx. So who of you has heard of or used PHP FPM? Cool. It's good to see that catching up. That was a way different ratio last year. PHP FPM is something that nowadays comes with your favorite PHP distributor of choice. If you're on a Debian-based system and you never heard of .deb is really nice. They give you current versions of all packages, and you get PHP 5.3 or 5.4. And if PHP releases a new version, you get that as a package a day later. So if you don't want to compile everything yourself, but still would like to not be stuck with PHP 5.2.6 or 5.3.6, or whatever your LTS thinks is stable, check out .deb. So PHP FPM. So Fast CGI Process Manager is something that works like Apache preforker in a way, but it only handles the PHP part. So it's one thread that says, I have a couple of requests coming in, so I will spawn PHP processes. Those will wait for work. If a web request comes in, I will dispatch which of the processes currently isn't doing anything. And if one of them dies, because PHP sometimes does that, then I will just respawn it, and I will take care of everything that you need, and we're gonna be friends. And this is actually a really, really solid piece of software. I never ran into troubles with FPM itself. And this is how you configure it. So for the master process, you say listen 9000. We're going to use this in an Nginx configuration later. Then you say listen allowed clients. So if you want to say I only accept fast CGI protocol coming from localhost, you can do that. This is how you do comments in Nginx. Never, not in Nginx, in ini. Never just leave that empty and don't comment it. I tried that. That cost me 3 hours of my life, because allowed clients is empty means nobody is allowed and not everyone is allowed. Because it's really important to have a configuration setting where you say, you shouldn't listen to anyone. This is the user and the group it should run as, and then this is, you can tell it how to do process management. So you can, relating to how Apache preforker spawns its children to do work, you can say, I want this dynamic or static. If you say static, then you say just make 20 worker processes or threads or whatever. And so here you can say, I want as max 50 PHP processes, because we benchmark the system, and if we put more PHP processes in, it doesn't really improve the response time. And let's start off with 5. Let's make sure we always have 5 around, and let's make sure we at max have 35 around, because we don't want to clutter the process list, or like just because we had a lot of traffic once doesn't mean we should always have like 30-40 worker processes. And the thing will take care about like waiting a couple minutes. Okay, there's no more traffic. I will scale down. I will shut down a couple processes. So this everything of that will be taken care for you. And this is how you integrate it with Nginx. So you say fast CGI path, localhost port 9000. The script name is my app index.php, and you include fast CGI params. Include fast CGI params is like magic make everything work include. If you don't do that, then it won't work. If you do that, everything will be taken care for you. This is actually just a file lying around in your Nginx distribution. So if you really want to figure out what are all the crazy headers it sets and how all the environment for fast CGI has to look like for FPM to work, you can look there, but it just works, so you don't have to. And this is like the line for your standard modern-ish PHP application, where you would usually just rewrite everything to index.php and then have inside of your application a thing that looks at the URL and then redirects it to the right controller. So most modern PHP frameworks work like that. And here we just cut out that step where we make a rewrite just to go to index.php, because we say we don't even care what the user requested. This is what you're going to get. And whatever you actually get delivered from the PHP will figure out anyways. And it will have all the correct like script, file name, path info, URL settings set. So, and if you have a different file layout because you have an older application or you made another decision or whatever, this is one way of doing it, where you can say, so try if this URL exists. If not, try if this URL, if this is a folder, and if that doesn't work out, go to index.php. So this is the very easy way to say, like, you try to find what could match, and if it doesn't, then I will look into it. And this helps, like, for most old applications that used Apache without rewrite rules. This is what's going to be working out. But it does things in the file system, so you might not want that, or you might want to map it a little bit different. So another way to do that is you just say, if it ends in PHP, .php, put it to my app /source, and then this is /fastCGI script name. So go find the appropriate PHP file that was requested in my source folder and redirect there. Like I said, you probably won't be needing this with modern frameworks, but those are like the 3 options, and one of those will get you to the goal for the application you care about. And this is how you make it so that PHP runs on another server than your web server, which is a really, really cool idea and very easy to do with Nginx. So you can just say the fast CGI path is just go to another server. And what that gives you is that you have your Nginx, and it does all your static content, it does your caching, it does whatever. It does your SSL offloading, and this machine probably won't have that much load, but it will have some. And maybe you want your application server not be on the same machine, because this is like the first thing you kind of do. First you take the database server off, then you might want to take the PHP to another server, and then you actually want to think about architecture. So what this gives you is, it just says, OK, so this PHP FPM is on another server, go there. And this is only for static content, and you don't have to set up like another web server on the other machine and have them talk PHP, have them talk HTTP to each other. It's very easy to say in fast CGI pass here, say add upstream, and then you have you define a block of 3 or 4 fast CGI things. So what you can do, and what's a very nice way of initially scaling something, is have one web server and have 3 or 4 servers that do all the PHP work, and distribute this not by having HA proxy or have a web server on every machine, but only have PHP running on each machine, and then send the requests there depending on the load. Even if you say, like here above that, set request header my special header that my application uses 7, that will also propagate. So the thing with that is like PHP is a little different compared to other fast CGI things. So there's a small section in a couple Nginx files where they say, this is what we use to make PHP work. So you don't have to. It doesn't say in the documentation, but that's sort of the sentiment I'm getting from them. OK, since I already spoiled you with that slide, that's the person I stole half of my talk from a couple, like maybe 2 years ago. And that first got me introduced to Nginx, so I included on every Nginx slide. This is one of his slide decks that show you a couple more advanced tricks you can do with Nginx and how he does scaling and stuff like that. So this is what you can look at afterwards. So thank you very much for your attention.